Spreading the love for the e-gaming all around to everybody that we know. As we are loaded in, and in the bottom right we have our first player. He is the blue Terran representing Team Liquid. He's uThermal.
In the top left side, we're looking at the main base of the Italian Stallion, the man who missed the season finals last season, and he wants to make sure that doesn't happen again. But he's here in the lower bracket, representing Clash and Red Bull. It's Reynor. Now, Nate, you may have noticed I was smiling a little bit while you were doing the intro and bringing us back. Reynor sent me a message on Battle.net. He said he was confident, yada yada. You know, he often does that. That doesn't mean a whole lot. CC first here, by the way. That's cool. So we had a little banter. And he also sent me a picture earlier today of a new keyboard. And then suddenly I was like, hey, are you playing with your new or your old keyboard? He's like, new. I was like, lol, how many games did you play with it? He said, 2. I'm on fire with it. I was like, oh my god, who the hell gets a new keyboard in the middle of the playoffs, plays 2 games on it, and then uses it in an incredibly important best of 5? I mean, hopefully it's somewhat similar, but that's just wild to me, Nate. It takes me 300 games to get used to a keyboard, and then I still switch back to the old one.
Yeah, that's anytime you're trying to use new equipment, I don't know how anybody adjusts that quickly. Even if you get like the same exact keyboard that you were using before, or it's made by the same company, same types of switches. Sometimes you just, it's like you get that feel and you adjust it on your desk about 700 times. And you're like, it should be just, just angle it a little more. Now I got to turn it back. And well, I won't lie to you. I'm doing it now, and I'm not really comfortable with any place that it is. So getting a new one would, it just makes it a whole lot more stressful, Kev, I think. But if he can make it work, then more power to him.
Yeah, there's 2 types of gamers, right? The type of gamer that can just sit down and play with almost any equipment, and then the people that are incredibly picky and really fall in love with the first setup that they actually play some good games with, and then they just kind of want to keep it that way for the upcoming 10 years. And I definitely fall into the second category. Apparently, Reynor falls into the first. Even when he visited me a while ago, he didn't even bring his mousepad. I'm like, what are you doing? How do you not bring your mousepad? He's like, don't you have an extra one? I was like, yeah, of course, but I don't have the same as you had. He's like, oh, it doesn't matter. I was like, wow. To me, Nate, it matters. Like everything.
Oh, yeah.
Like anything has ever mattered in my life, okay? I need everything to be the same. Like you said, even the same mousepad, but then a brand new version of it would feel completely different to me because I'm so used to the old one being worn in.
Exactly. Everything gets a little bit worn in at some point or another. Even the bottoms, like you won't even notice, like you get a new mouse, but like the little pads on the bottom of them wear off a little bit over time, and you get used to that, right? You get used to how it slides a little bit differently and all these types of things. But it's no matter how much you pay attention or try to focus on your equipment, you're always going to struggle against the guys like Reynor or Stefano, who just show up, pick a random keyboard and mouse out of a garbage can, and they'll win a tournament with it. They'll be like, oh, you spent a lot of money on your setup? That's nice. Thanks for give me the prize pool now. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, peripheral companies absolutely hate people like Stefano. They show up without their equipment and still win a tournament. But make sure to buy this brand new mouse, guys. It's really good. I'm like, well, is it though? All right, let's talk a little bit about this because I do find this funny. Yesterday, we saw uThermal play a TVZ best of 5, where he was obviously, I think, the favorite, even though Vanya is very good. But I always see Vanya as a ZVZ monster and definitely very powerful in ZVP too. ZVT is the one matchup that I feel a little bit less confident when I talk about Vanya. And uThermal probably agrees with that. So he's like, all right, against Vanya, I can just go Hellion Cloak Banshee, super safe and standard each and every single game. Now, he does do that here too against Reynor, but of course off the back of a command center first, which is very different than going barracks first.
Yeah, he really turboed out the economy. I mean, the third command center being as early as it was, you don't get too much greedier than this. And I think it's a good move because, you talk about the things that you would generally worry about. And if a Zerg is going to attack you early on, Reynor's not going to do like a 1.5 Baneling bus. These are guys that are pretty much always playing for that 3-base situation, no matter what. And if you go for a later attack like Roaches or Ravagers, then the Banshees there's really not a whole lot you can do against them. They can't attack the Banshees unless they stand there and just sit in corrosive bile. But we don't really see that happen at the pro level. So uThermal gives himself the ability to not only be really greedy and power up for a nice mid game, but at the same time, he does have some insurance policy against you know, like a weird early attack that Reynor would go for. But that's just not something that we typically see because we know Reynor loves his Zerglings. We know he likes to be out and active on the map. Lightshade, this third base is very wide open. So I'm sure we'll be seeing some attempts at run-bys and harass down the line. And for uThermal, it's all about trying to keep that creep spread back. And I mean, honestly, secure that third base as quickly as possible and build, I'd say build a little wall around it, you know, tuck in a supply depot or something. So, because this has to be one of the most vulnerable bases on this map pool for a third to take for TVZ. So I like that he's already starting to wall off around the mineral line too.
Yeah, a little bit surprised about the way that Reynor is playing here on Lightshade, as he's going for the quickest spire possible, fires it up even before Baneling speed, and hopefully for Reynor that's not an upgrade that he completely forgets about, because one would say it's somewhat important. So Reynor is going up to 4 bases spire before Baneling speed, and even a single evolution chamber has been built. I love how we are familiar with the Evo chamber block, but apparently now we have a Sport Crawler block too. There is double cloak Banshee heading into the natural though, but Reynor already has an Overseer and a Queen nearby. But that Queen is not being safe. Sport Crawler does get a single hit off, but at least uThermal gets a Queen for his efforts.
Yeah, that's a nice grab. I like you pointing that out. Typically, you know, the Zerg's like, oh yeah, my Queen's here. He sees the Overseer, he's going to pull back. But nope. And there's that bunker we were talking about, wrapped into the wall on that third base. So uThermal is nice and situated, and a denial on this fourth would actually be pretty huge. I don't know that he's going to be able to get it.
Oh no.
Overseer should come. Didn't even cloak those, but wow, the third a little exposed, gets 2 drones. Definitely was, that's a huge sweaty moment, because if he goes in there on those drones, even if the Hellions all die, if he gets like, you know, 8 or 10 of those bad boys, you're getting pretty scared. So uThermal keeping his units out on the map and alive as best he can.
Yeah, I wonder if there was a universe where if he would have microed the Banshees immediately and he only would have gone for the hatch, if he would have been able to get a cancel on that hatch, I think that would have been very big. But uThermal instead just tried to get something done with the Hellions. Now the armory is close to finishing up, so Hellions could morph into Hellbats. 1-1 upgrades are done, and don't forget that Reynor's Evo Chambers were very late, so his 1-1 upgrades have not even started yet. Cloak Banshees being annoying in the natural, uThermal is going to run back to his side of the map because he doesn't want to get swarmed. But I actually think it wouldn't have hurt to stick around. And it seems like uThermal agrees because he has turned around, and now the Hellions will morph into Hellbats. There are a couple of Widow Mines here that are cloaked. Reynor sends a single link forward and now also knows about the second Widow Mine that's still there, but good unburrow by uThermal.
Yeah, great little micro there. And, you know, you talk about the value of going for this armory. Well, he had his upgrades so early. It's not even like you did it just for the Hellbats or did it for the mines. His 2-2 is coming in at a really nice time. And we don't even have 1-1 started for Reynor. This kind of making me nervous, Kev, because, you know, sometimes we see Zergs play this very swarmy style, and you're kind of hoping to almost like run them over if the Terran overextends. But if uThermal doesn't die, okay, there's the 1-1 finally booting up. Like you absolutely cannot fight with Ling Bane against 2-2 Marines if you have no upgrades.
Nope,
Asking for it.
I'm 100% with you. Obviously, this was part of Reynor's strategy. The upgrades were always going to be a bit later, but not this much later, because those Evo Chambers were easily done for over a minute. And this is going to be rough, man. There is a good chance there's going to be a window where uThermal is going to be 4 upgrades ahead. And if I'm uThermal, I'm not even turning around for this. Like, I may lose a lot of SCVs at home, but I'm just going to try to go straight up win this game, because I've got 53 Marines on the map, 8 Widow Mines that are permanently cloaked. And sure, he's going to take some damage here near the orbital, but Reynor is actually in serious trouble here in game 1.
Yeah, this pre-split on the end of creep has made it really hard. He can't just throw a couple of Banelings into this. It will not be enough to clean all of it up. And I love that he keeps a bunch of the Widow Mines right on the edge too, so he has that retreat path. Reynor trying to hold on here. He did, we were talking about, he unseated that third base, and uThermal's going to start to move units across the map again. There are a lot of Banelings morphing right up in front of his army, however. 17 drones were killed during this, Kev, so he's put on quite a bit of pain. Widow Mine shot drags back on the inside to those Mutas and Lings, and well, uThermal's generating some pretty sick value off his army, and those upgrades, they haven't even finished for him yet.
Nope, and all the mines are still alive. I think that's the best thing. Like, we just had a fight where we traded, we both dealt some economic damage to each other, but all the mines of uThermal survived. Now, the third is still kind of wide open, so these mutas that do have +1 flyer attacks, they can absolutely be annoying. uThermal is playing a pretty gung-ho game, because I think there is a single turret across 3 bases, so that's obviously not a whole lot. But if I'm uThermal, I wouldn't even bother. I honestly think that the best thing uThermal could have done is pedal to the meadow and keep being in Reynor's face, because I really believe he had Reynor on the ropes already. There's so many mines still. Ah, don't lose all of them.
Sometimes you just hope that you get, you know, the Zerg will just click like a little bit of lings around the edge and you'll get a random free shot just for leaving him there, but not today, not this time. Reynor did a good job though of taking that bottom left base during all the chaos. He has that up and running already. Full saturation just about on the mineral line. So counterattack with some lings and mutas, but there are some Thors to help hold it down. Very chunky. The lings take out one of them. The other one's kind of holding the door for the rest of them, but there are not really a lot of Marines to actually deal with the ground units in this situation, Roddy. And uThermal is going to tap out.
Wow. Taking a look at what's going to happen with this army in the bottom left then, because I'm actually a bit surprised by that. Okay. While this was happening in the natural, the big army that uThermal had in the bottom left walked in. It did fire, but it actually just got swallowed up by 6 or 7 Bailings. So uThermal lost all the supply in the bottom left. And I guess that's why he tapped out, because other than before that, it really wasn't looking that bad. Reynor takes the 1-0 lead, but it really wasn't that convincing to me, Nate. And especially those upgrades being that late, pretty scary.
Yeah, no, that's a really terrifying situation to get into because it can snowball so quickly. And I do think that you bring up a really good point where it wasn't like Reynor was totally forgetting about it. It's just that uThermal's build was unbelievably greedy. It's just so hard though, because he's trying to make this push. He's trying to do this damage. He gets some drones, but his third base gets knocked out, right? And then when he tries to retake it, he doesn't quite have it there. Sometimes a lot of Terran players kind of get, you know, you put your foot on the pedal and you can't really take it off. But at some point, that economy has to be secured from these run-bys and counterattacks, because that's Reynor's bread and butter, and that's 100% what made this game. You know, that I thought we were going to go for quite a bit longer on that, to be honest. I really wasn't expecting the GG moment to happen so soon, but that's the kind of thing that Reynor does.
Yeah, and obviously, like uThermal taking some damage at home, losing a Thor, almost losing the second one as he had some trouble unloading it. He was going to lose a few more SCVs, but all of that would have been okay if that army in the bottom left would have been controlled, and he fires, he kills those Lings and Banes, gets on top of a hatchery, finds some economic damage, then it would have been a completely different game. But there was a big clump of 14 to 18 Marines just getting swallowed up by 4 Banelings, and that's why uThermal decided to tap out. I also kind of wish when uThermal was fighting near the triangle base of Reynor, he had all those mines there, right? The mines were very far back, which is really cool if Reynor just runs into you and you run away. But they were almost too far back, because imagine if those mines would have been able to participate in the battle a little bit longer, because that fight got really close. And yeah, uThermal being that far ahead in upgrades, absolutely a game that I think uThermal can look back at and be like, well, with 1 or 2 minor changes and slightly different decision here and there, that could have been his.
It really did feel like he had such a good setup. The 2-2 was so early, and I love you mentioning again, he kept the mines burrowed right at the edge of the creep. So we actually did even get to see one of them drag a big shot into the rest. But like, you know, the bunker at the third base is great, but you know, it kind of reminds me of a bit of that like cannon battery situation where if the cannon is up front, yeah, you can kind of heal it. Yeah, you can kind of repair the bunker, but when you can get something in front of that to help lock it down, like, you know, you put the extra gateway, I would say, if you're Protoss, but if you're Terran, maybe it's a couple depots around it or just in front of it. Or I love engineering base for that purpose because they build quickly and have lots of health. But it is so difficult to stop those types of attacks from coming in. Yeah, I know. I'm a psychopath. We all knew that.
Couple extra missile turrets, native food.
Yeah, you know, I'll just say it. If he had 3 turrets, and I'm talking one between the geysers where it doesn't block the movement. Oh, that sweet spot. Oh, you know I love it. Oh, those mutts would have been toast.
All right, game 2 is going to be played on Blackburn. Traditionally not a bad Terran map, but that's mostly when they play mech. I don't think this man is going to mech it up here in game 2, but would be kind of cool. He is, of course, hailing from the Netherlands, representing Team Liquid. He's got the support of blue in the back. It is uThermal.
And his opponent in the bottom left, leading 1-0 in this series. You know him, you love him. He is Reynor.
You know, in MMA, I follow a lot of MMA news, and what the hell?
Nani?
Nate, what the hell is this?
I don't know.
Okay. I think no. I know what it is. Because the Overlord is gonna fly into the natural. It's gonna see a depot, but then it's not gonna see a command center. And then maybe Reynor is going to freak the hell out, thinking that he's getting 2 racks or 3 racks. But
Why not just build it on the gold if you're gonna do this?
He's not
I
gonna
don't
fly
know.
to the gold. He's gonna fly it into his natural. It's just I
Yeah.
guess, a little bit of a mind game, hoping that Reynor sends out 12 drones looking for 2 Rexes and 3 Rexes, but this is some real 200 IQ underwater chess StarCraft.
Underwater upside down chess, Kev. That's right. Hanging from the bottom of the ocean, just chilling. It's still weird because it's like he comes to the ramp, you just see the depot, and you're totally right. That pretty much screams I'm cheesing you. The drone is headed towards the 3rd location. He's got 1 that's come out, but then he comes back and he's like, okay, it's in the main base, which just again is like the command center. It was so far away.
But imagine if you're Reynor now and you're scouting this. Aren't you like, what the hell are you doing, Mad Mark? But it seems like Reynor is not ultra concerned because he did find his barracks somewhat quickly. He also sees there's gas being mined and the command center is morphing into an orbital. Reynor's like, well, whatever it is, I guess it is something. But he's going back into droning, and I guess he will find out on the rainy day. Well, that rainy day is gonna be soon. Imagine if you just open the broadcast and then you see that first comment from uThermal being in the middle of nowhere.
Do not try this on ladder. You will die to every random person that goes pool first. What a fascinating way for this second game to start. Okay, well the Ling's gonna see. Okay, yes, the command center is coming back. It's I think if you're Reynor, you're just like, where the hell did he build that? What? Why is that flying from over there?
I was looking at the player cam, and I'm pretty sure that Reynor let go of a little small. He's like, all right, I guess this is a thing now. uThermal is going to try to get an eBay block off, but if the Reaper is not around, there is not a whole lot you can do. uThermal obviously needs to keep the Reaper at home just in case a few Zerglings from Reynor are still around. And Reynor drops a very early Roach Warren, 3 minutes and 25 seconds. A Roach Warren going down for our Zerg player.
And this is where I think things get a little bit interesting because we've seen that roaches can be strong on this map against Terrans that take that triangle base down below. If the rocks get broken, you can get a really wide angle, and the surface area from the roaches can become quite difficult to deal with. Another consequence of the way that these walls were done, and we'll keep in mind, I guess, if this game goes long, but if he doesn't get those walls like between the main and the natural, a run by could end up being extra devastating because he's kind of put his production all over the place. And 7 roaches being made. It is that crazy fast 3rd command center, but this is why uThermal goes for the Banshee. So yeah, but I mean, if he I guess it really depends if he's going to wall off his natural, if he's going to build a bunker there, if he's, if the Hellions will even see this before it's too late.
The problem is like, okay, we're going for a Banshee, but this is still command center first triple CC into Banshee, right? So
yes,
it's not like we went for a 1 barracks fast expand into the quickest possible Banshee. Reynor is going to scout, and he's going to realize that, all right, you are going for a starport. There is most likely cloak on the way, unless you're faking it. uThermal has spotted the roaches in the center of the map with his Hellions, but Reynor is not like all in here by any means. He's just looking for damage, and I think he will always find damage. The big question is how much. I'm gonna go with maybe 8 to 10 SCVs, unless he never gets in. But I feel like with this many roaches, you should be able to get in.
This is the best way to do it though, because the roaches can't deal damage without getting through the wall. So you're actually kind of okay with trading some of your Hellions against them, just because, I mean, it's obviously not Lings. And what does a Zerg really do in this situation if they open roaches and it doesn't get anything done? They just kind of drone up and go straight to layers. So that's what we're seeing here. And it could just be, a double down. We could see a Nidus network, could just be straight to Spire because the Banshee's obviously not going to be very useful there. Yeah, I think the smartest thing uThermal did there was just finish the wall as quickly as possible and just basically say, yeah, if you want to attack buildings for 2 minutes while my Banshees kill your roaches, we'll do that dance.
Yeah, and for a split second there, I thought that Reynor was just going to go for it anyway. And with this many roaches, he obviously would have been able to gun down a depot. But I guess the downside then is you lose all 9 roaches, and then most likely a few Hellions survive, and then you're forced to rebuild the roaches. And Reynor didn't want to do that economic damage to himself. Because if uThermal would handle all of it well and would evacuate the low ground, send SCVs into the main, sure, he would lose a lot of mining time, but he will always clean this up with the Banshee. And I guess Reynor would deal more damage to himself than he would have dealt to uThermal. So I guess it's kind of smart to just turn around.
Yeah, if he loses all those roaches, then he's not able to defend with them on that 3rd base, right? Where we just saw those Hellions come in. So good decision making on both parts. We're seeing that ebb and flow of the TVZ decision making tree taking place. And of course, having 2 Banshees for harass purposes past that point, since the Hellions know where the roaches are, he doesn't really need the Banshees at home. I think if you know that your opponent is playing with roaches, a priority should always be to try to keep the banshees safe, whether it's just for holding down an expansion later on, but like do your harass, deal your damage, take some hits, and then go home, repair, keep these bad boys alive, because they're going to generate infinite value, since we can tell, or at least we know, Roddy, that it's missile attacks for Reynor. He's staying committed to the roach memes.
Yep. I mean, Rogue showed us the way, right? Roaches on Blackburn. If you can beat Maro, I believe you can beat any Terran on this planet. And maybe Reynor is also feeling the love for the Roach a bit more in this day and age. I gotta say, I like how quickly Reynor pulled those drones a couple of times in the natural and in the third base. Lesser Zerg would have ended up losing a few more drones there. You too often see Banshees getting in range, first shot off, second shot off, and then they even get a shot while all the other drones are being pulled and one drone is derping, and then you easily lose 4 or 5 workers. But Reynor pulling them before the Banshees are even in range of the drones allowed them to only lose a queen there in the end, which is obviously a lot better than losing 7 drones.
Could not agree more. And the Hellions are going to be used to try and poke and bully away this gold-based mineral line. So able to keep the value on those as this game continues to progress. And the Infestation Pit and Baneling Nest. So maybe a little Ravager, Roach, Bane, maybe some Infestors, a cheeky fungal for the Ravager Roach. Can do a lot of damage if you combo that with the Dials. These Hellions, I mean, for all intents and purposes, they're pretty much worthless aside from throwing into Mineral Lines to try and grab a couple drones, since we're not really seeing Zerglings as a component in this game, so don't mind him losing those.
And double drop being sent out right now for uThermal would be lovely for Reynor to spot this, and Reynor does see it, and now he's going to keep these units at home. Are you surprised, by the way, that uThermal went for the triangle expand, or do you think that's the better base to take when you play against roaches?
I think any Terran who plays this map, and especially plays bio, which is pretty much everybody, I think you've got to be used to it at some point, and it's almost like it can be like a throw opportunity for Reynor if he tries to force it. That big surround that we were talking about, if uThermal feels comfortable dealing with it, because he even has the bunker up here at this base, even though his whole army was here with 4 tanks. So I do think it would be, I don't know, I don't think it could necessarily work. So I guess that's why he's doing it, is he feels like he has the ability to hold it anyway. Because you, of course, being able to rally closer to the front of the Zerg's base is always going to be what you want to do with bio. It's all about getting in the Zerg's face as much as you can.
I kind of like this. Banshees in the center of the map, double drop still in the top side, but now double drop is also heading towards the main base. But Reynor did see it with an overseer already a long time ago, but I wasn't sure if he actually paid attention. Looking at the movement of these roaches, I'm going to say he is. The hive is already done, and that means first Vipers will be started up immediately, as +1 melee is halfway done, and we're going to see the Ultralisk Cavern as well. It's of course going to take a while before the Ultras are as good as they are supposed to be. You really want to get Kindness Plating. Without Kindness, I don't think they'll do a whole lot. But the moment Kindness Plating is out, and we'll see either some abducts on the tanks or a few Blinding Clouds, Ultras can obviously turn the tide into the Zerg favor.
Yeah, uThermal, most importantly right now, just needs to be not just on the map and dealing damage, but distracting Reynor and kind of keeping this possible push from being what it could be. Because if he doesn't have any sort of tech follow-up transition or anything like that, like Ghosts, Liberators, that's when these Vipers become truly terrifying. They're going to put the Blinding Clouds on the tanks. He drops right underneath. Does he get it? That's a huge pickup. One of the medevacs is still just barely alive. And there's only 1 Viper left on the map right now. These tanks are going to be a little bit up front, but the ones in the back are getting extra damage. We can see, hey, those Banshees still coming in, still being a part of the fight very late in the game. That's exactly the kind of, usage of those utility units that you want to see at this point. And Reynor is suddenly now having to run all over the map to deal with this harass, and these attacks immediately starts that next Ultra Cavern.
Yep, that's actually nice. I mean, there are 4 Ultras in the way, but this obviously means that they won't have Kindness Plating for a very long time. And even though Reynor still has plenty of minerals in the bank, he doesn't have that much gas. So this is definitely something to be a little bit concerned over. It's a shame for uThermal that he lost all those tanks in the center, right? Because I feel like without tanks, it's just so hard for him to get too carried away. He's doing a good job with the drops. Now actually finding more damage. The Banshees in the top left side. These Banshees have been absolute MVPs. 14 kills and 9 kills on these 2 Banshees respectively. It does seem like their days are finally gone, but while all of this is happening, we still have a tiny drop in the natural too. That one gets shut down as well. Reynor weathers the storm, but definitely lost a couple of expensive units there, mostly the Viper and of course the Ultra Cannon.
Yeah, and going back to what we were talking about earlier, the Vipers play such a huge role with this type of army composition, because it really does lean heavily on the siege tanks for defending against these types of big swarmy types of armies. You don't have much other AoE when the roaches are being covered for by all these Banes and Ultralisks too. So Biles pick off a few of those, but if you can stay out on the map, you can do a lot with this. Big counter though on the south side. Reynor hitting with the roaches and ravagers. There's a big wall in front of that third base, and the reinforcements are going to rally out quickly enough that only a few SCVs will die. So Reynor comes out, takes out a few of those kind of like defensive sort of I guess buildings, but not too much else here just yet.
No, I mean, uThermal does have a nice little upgrade advantage. He's obviously on 2-2 already and 3-3 as well on the way. The moment kindness plating kicks in, that's going to matter a bit less. I like the addition of a few Liberators, but I think the biggest problem for our Dutch Terran here is that he keeps losing his tanks. And it's just so hard for him to really stay out on the map if you keep losing your tanks over and over again. Reynor's obviously done a very good job in resetting that tank count. Seems like a couple of big units got picked up in the center, while these roaches, sure, they found 12 SCVs, but all of these roaches are going to get picked off. But yeah, what's more, it's just bio units in the center, mate.
Yeah, and that the progression of the tech, I think, is still something that I'm going to be curious about. If uThermal's able to pick this game up, then great. But if not, definitely going to be, you know, asking yourself, where are the ghosts? You know, where's the Liberators? This army doesn't have crazy anti-air in it. So I do like this. Okay, even just one to kind of cover the staging ground could end up being very useful.
Big run bio again.
There's a lot of bio.
Yeah, it's a decent amount of bio, but the Liberator gets picked off, and there are so many links taking control of this orbital command. I actually think he could have clicked on it, because then uThermal would at least be forced to lift it. You know, forcing out any APM is nice. Seems like Reynor is waiting maybe for +2 melee. That's very close to finishing up. And let's not forget about +3 carapace that's ready to kick in. Parasitic Bomb is being spammed on some of these medevacs, and uThermal's army in the center of the map does not feel powerful enough. He did kill 10 drones, that's nice. But in return, he's going to lose a lot of his medevacs, a lot of Marauders in the top left side. And it's going to be harder and harder to really start mining up this third orbital. It almost felt like uThermal just gave up on it. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to rebuild my sim city there. These structures have already been taken out. I'm not going to rebuild them.
Yeah, we saw that earlier too, in that my mind escapes which map it was on the counterattacks light shade, I believe. So just not being able to get that reset up is just so tough, because now the money's a problem. He can't afford to max out. This doesn't really have any sort of bank, and those parasitic bombs working away on the medevacs, they don't really have a whole lot of energy, Kev. So the Ravagers and the Ultralisks try to push up this ramp, but they can't go quite all the way since there is no creep spread. The bio still very strong in this position. I do not think that... Yeah, okay, Reynor just now started. I was going to check Anabolic Synthesis. That's the Ultralisk speed upgrade for off creep. That one has just now started, and I think that's going to make it a whole lot harder down the line. But look how low the bio is. So much red, so much orange, just no energy on the medevacs, because the Vipers are saying, okay, the tanks are gone. We don't need to Blinding Cloud. We don't need to abduct. So let's just Parasitic Bomb your healers. And now you are in this really tough spot, because there's no ghosts. There's no opportunity to try and snipe any of this from afar and turtle up and drag this game out. Although, again, I'd still love to see that. I'd love to see a Ghost Academy. Obviously, slowing the game down is maybe not something that uThermal wants to do, but I'm not sure that he's going to win this war of attrition, because every time they fight, uThermal's the one that walks away with less and less every time.
Reynor's doing a really good job in picking up the expensive units, right? Over 11 tanks have already gone down. Every Liberator that has been built gets picked off almost immediately by these Ravagers with their corrosive bile. And then the parasitic bombs, like you mentioned, just keep reducing the medevac count over and over again. Which is funny, because normally it always feels like we're going to try to kill the bio. But it feels that Reynor has tried to kill everything else other than the bio units here, because he knows bio alone is simply not going to get the job done. This is a lot of Banelings, a lot of Ultras. uThermal is fighting near a planetary fortress, but that's not going to make the difference. And just like that, Reynor takes the 2-0 lead in this best of 5. And he honestly is looking very, very dominant here, Nate.
Yeah, no, just really good, clean, crisp play. Even when things don't necessarily go his way, he doesn't, you know, you're obviously going to be asking yourself what the hell is going on when your Overlord flies over and there's nothing there, but actually there is a barracks and a gas, but no command center. And you're like, what is this? But I think that really is just another testament to how good of a player Reynor is that he has this 7 Roach Rush that kind of hits. There's only Hellions and 1 Banshee. But even though he doesn't get anything done, he's like, okay, I know what I need to do now. Gets the rest of his bases up, gets his upgrades, puts the army together that holds it. And even without having to use like that Lingbane Muta, without the Reynor Lings that we always talk about, he still just plays a beautiful game of positioning where he doesn't even have the creep all over the map. And he just says, you're not going to kill me. You can attack me as much as you want, but none of it is going to be significant enough to give you the advantage. And that's exactly how it went.
Yep. And it just felt impossible for uThermal to keep on attacking if he keeps losing his tanks, because then it's just bio, and you know that's always a bit dicey. And even the bio units had a very hard time staying around, because every time they stimmed, well, it significantly hurt the HP. And then the rest of the army is like, well, medevacs look up in the sky, and there's like 1 or 2 medevacs working overtime trying to heal up every single Marina Marauder. It's just impossible to really stick around, so then you're forced back again, and the more you're forced back, the more that economy that Reynor had is going to kick in, and then you're not just fighting a couple Lings anymore, but you're fighting 60, 70 at a time. Reynor was just having the time of his life. I think uThermal's playing pretty good, and it's obviously fun to see him having his own approach to the opening. CC first both games, but in the second game, dropping that CC in basically the middle of nowhere of Blackburn, then floating it over, but didn't quite get the overreaction of Reynor that I think he was hoping for.
Yeah, and I think that this now kind of begs a very interesting question. Is uThermal going to go command center first again? It's Romanticide, by the way. Is he going to go for that early CC? Is Reynor going to try to do something about that? Or exactly that? Is uThermal going to say, screw it, it's YOLO o'clock?
I think it is. You know, in the last game he faked it, didn't quite get the response, like I said, he was perhaps hoping for. This time I think we're going to send out the SCVs, and I also kind of know uThermal as a guy that often comes in with a plan, but then if the plan is not working out, he always has a different plan, and that's sending out a couple of the boys. Let's see if that's going to happen or not, as we are loading into Romanticide, and it seems like all the boys are staying at home and are doing what they are supposed to be doing. So I guess we're not going to see a 2-Rex or a 3-Rex here. In the top left side, we're looking at the main base of our Dutchman. He's down 0-2, needs to turn things around to make it into the round of 8. This is uThermal.
And his opponent spawning in the bottom right as the red Zerg player. Up 2-0 and looking damn good doing it. He is Reynor.
Does seem like we're getting another command center first here, Nate. No barracks yet, no SCVs being sent out on the map. So uThermal is going for CC first. 3 games in a row.
I love it. I love it a lot, Kev. It's if you don't think that you're gonna get hit with some sort of crazy fast pool, even most like slightly early but not super early pool builds don't necessarily get you there before the command center is actually done. So you're almost always able to lift it off if you need to, and then most Terran players will wall off that main ramp either with 2 barracks if they're gonna go, you know, for like just big bio plays early on, or they'll put that barracks there, take the gas, and close it off with a depot like it's a normal build. So you're not even necessarily like crazy vulnerable when you do CC first against Zerg. You just don't really get that that normal Reaper timing for scouting or poking. But I feel like this comes a little bit more from a place of comfort playing against Reynor, which I know sounds weird since uThermal's down 0-2, but I can only imagine that he's playing this specific way against Reynor because he just doesn't see Reynor as a cheesy player. If Raynor's going to attack him, it's going to be while he's taking that third base. You know, it'll be something like that roach shove that we saw on Blackburn. He's not going to try and force the issue early enough where it could actually kill him.
I think what was actually quite telling is that Blackburn is a map that's not particularly known for being excellent to run-bys and whatnot, but since so much of the battling happened in the center of the map, or even in the top side, or in Reynor's main, in a weird way, uThermal's third base was somewhat exposed. And I gotta say, Reynor did a really good job in first opening the doors and then just sticking around, going for run-bys over and over again. Roaches, links, back to roaches, few more links, and just doing a really good job in disturbing the economy of uThermal. That's not something I feel like we see super often on Blackburn, because normally you think like, well, there's nothing you can do here. It's all too choked up, simply cannot get anything done. But Reynor found a way, even before he had Bailings.
Yeah, and these are the kinds of things that we look at. We're like, what is the weakness, right? Where is that window against Reynor? And it never really seems to open in the traditional sense, where someone commits a lot. You're like, okay, there's not as much behind this at home, right? Or there can't be that many drones with an attack. And you look at Reynor and you're like, okay, well, it doesn't seem to be a problem for him. He's got plenty of things going on behind this, and uThermal has that third command center start up, which I think makes perfect sense, especially against Zerg. You're always going for fast 3cc. uThermal just kind of, I really do feel like the strategy here is just saying, if I was against a laser or someone that might want to be a little more aggressive in the early game, I don't think you try to force this, but you're also trying to put pressure on the other player by saying, maybe I don't need to harass you as much. Maybe I can focus on getting out to that mid-game stage and just being economically ahead.
We are going to switch it up a little bit, though, because this time a Liberator is going to be the first unit being produced by the starport. I mean, I don't hate it. I like this build by uThermal, but I also wouldn't have hated it if he would have just switched gears one time in this best of 5 and maybe go for some heavy aggression of 2 bases with a much later third base, whether it's a Hellbat timing attack or a little Hellion drop in the corner of the main. But I guess, I mean, uThermal is obviously a professional. He knows what he's doing. I can only assume that he is comfortable in the macro-oriented game. And maybe B, he just thinks that Reynor's scouting is too good to get away with something that's very hit or miss.
Yeah, Reaper going up towards that front side, and I do think the Liberator is a good choice. This is a map where we talk about things that are good for Terran players, especially that airspace where that third has been taken and where the natural is. Actually makes it easy for the Liberator between the two. But how do 3 Hellions just zoom on in around that banana hallway and pick off 9 drones, Roddy? That is okay. If something's not inspired you so far here, uThermal, that has to be it. And well, because both expansions were taken in this way, the Liberator can kind of bounce between these two with relative ease, assuming that the queens aren't there.
Extra factories going down, more Hellions being built.
Oh,
so
baby.
It seems like we are going to mech it up a little bit. I was hoping to maybe see this on Blackburn, because I know Reynor really hates going up against mech on that map. And I thought maybe there is a key to success there. This first Liberator not being very successful, and it's actually in a very awkward spot. It's being trapped by these queens. I think it will get out, but not before dropping relatively low on HP. More Hellions looking for success. Unfortunately, cannot prevent that drone from morphing into a hatchery. And Reynor is going to get a very easy cleanup here on these 4. So the first 3 Hellions, awesome. The Liberator follow-up and the additional 4 Hellions, not super awesome.
No, tickles the Overlord a bit. Hasn't decided whether he wants to try to commit on it. But, I mean, it's Romanticide. And if there is a map in this pool that is a mech map, this has to be it. That third base is as safe as any other that you are going to be able to take. So you're not super concerned about getting pushed early on. We know uThermal likes these Banshees as the follow-up, and obviously, as we were talking about the Liberator before, he has some air tools to use to defend himself if he needs to.
Reynor has not 100% confirmed yet that this is mech, by the way. He didn't get in again with an Overseer. He's making Baning Speed, double Evolution Chamber. Now, maybe he knows, and it's one of these things where he doesn't need to see all the extra factories go down, but the amount of Hellions that are being built at this point is obviously a bit of a tell, right? The initial 3 and then the follow-up 4 is like one thing, but now 4 extra Hellions show up. You might be like, all right, what the hell is happening? The Reaper is still on patrol, but I wonder if Reynor will just start +1 melee. Yes, he will, but he does throw down a Hydra then, okay.
Yeah, and there are a couple of ways that you can really dismantle this once you get a read on it as the Overseer goes in. So the Ling upgrades, Banes, we don't really see those be super crazy against mech, but as you were saying, he maybe didn't have that confirmation. Now the Roach Warren immediately starts. Did he
cancel
the Hydra Den? What?
Yeah, so he really wasn't sure. This is what I kind of thought at first. I was like, maybe Reynor is just that good that he doesn't need to see everything, but completely changed his mind there. Wanted to maybe play some Ling Lurker Bane. Instead, it's like, nope, I don't want to go Hydras and Lurkers here. I'll go for Roaches instead. As a few drones are dying somewhere. Actually, quite a few drones are dying. Double Cloak Banshee, hello there. 8 workers going down. Where's the Overseer when you need it the most?
There are a couple more drones definitely could have grabbed over there. I guess, already kind of confirmed there wasn't a Spore Crawler at this third base, or at least not where it needed to be. So the Liberator, Kevin, it did not really do a lot of damage on its own, but it set up for damage with that attack, and he's actually going to go for a huge drop.
I kind of like this, man. This is crazy. I've seen you do wild stuff like this in the past, but you may as well make things a little bit crazy. He's killed a lot of drones, and that obviously means that Reynor has been rebuilding all these drones. The roaches that are currently in production, Nate, are not roaches that have roach speed. Here are the 4 medevacs. Where are we going to drop it? uThermal throws down the scan. He goes for the main. The absolute mad lad will just go for the main and unload tanks and hellbats into the main base of Reynor.
Well, I can definitely say I've never seen anybody try it quite like this before, Cav. I'm like, okay, maybe hellbat jobs. We've had a bit of that. We've seen people like kind of throw tanks away as they change their supply into other stuff late game wise. But he's basically saying, I'm going to take the strongest thing of Terran, which is the mobility with medevacs and bio, and I'm going to just use that with this mech force and just quickly move huge amounts of, you know, really powerful units into your base. But losing these is definitely something that is, it comes with a cost. Not easy to replace these siege tanks, as after the end of that fight, well, resources lost is literally 4 resources difference, Roddy.
I'm really impressed with how Reynor handled. I'm really impressed with how he handled that. Could pull the drones immediately away from the low ground, because obviously those tanks in the main were in range of that mineral line. I would have loved it if uThermal would have been able to get his hands on like 4 Hellions. And imagine while Reynor is setting up to run into all those tanks, 3 or 4 Hellions would have run into the 3rd base of Reynor. It was completely exposed, wide open, not a single unit in range. Would have been awesome, because if you make that attack and then you actually kill 20 drones again, I think it's a big success. Right now, it's somewhat questionable, but I guess we'll see where uThermal takes it.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing that this definitely does, it's catch Reynor off guard. How do you answer 4 tanks and, you know, 7 Hellbats getting dropped right onto your base? And I think he even has transformation servos so that he doesn't, so he can load more of them as Hellions and they transform super fast. And
there are 3 more medevacs flying towards the other side of the map. I'm not sure where.
Multi-prong mech drops, Roddy! It's happening!
I cannot believe it's happening. Actually, we have a hellbat drop here in this mineral line, and that's quite a few drones going down. Reynor is floating quite some minerals. He's forced to cancel that hatchery, or was that a kill? No, it was a cancel, so Reynor is paying attention. uThermal is playing mech like it's bio. I love it.
As you know, if you're a Zerg player, then man, ladder is going to be real scary between getting carrier rushed every ZVP and eventually, I don't know, maybe this is going to be a thing we just see occasionally. This actually looks kind of good. He's getting a lot of damage done, and the reliance on all this anti-ground makes for the medevacs to be quite difficult for him to engage. He doesn't really have anything that can catch them.
There is a Liberator sieging up here, but the Ravagers will take care of it. I wonder what uThermal is going to do with his triple drop at the bottom side. Oh, the corrosive ball! Almost connected there. Not quite, but almost. uThermal decides to unload here, but this is not a very safe space to unload. Too many Zerg units nearby. I almost wish that uThermal gets a bit less fancy now and just sends his triple drop back into the main army that's now making its way towards the bottom side of the map. Reynor is going to morph 11 Banelings. Is 11 Banelings enough? He does have Baneling speed, but he's not going to be able to finish them, and he's going to be forced to cancel this hatchery as well, Nate.
This is just insane. This is just absolutely crazy. He's got the other drop inside that main base, and he has to deal with it because the tanks can hit the drone line. So roaches are going to be able to spread pretty nicely. That will get cleaned up, except the other drop somehow managed to get into the main.
Oh my
So there's 3 more tanks behind the hive. That base on the bottom left has been picked off. That base in the northeast, I think he's starting to rebuild it, but what an unbelievable amount of pressure out of a mech strategy, just in the Zerg space, non-stop, giving him absolutely 0 time to figure out what he wants to do. And I don't know, this one is going to be a very fun one for all the YouTube analysts out there, Roddy, for people picking games apart. That hive still,
kill it.
So low. Look at.
Oh my goodness, the tank, I think in the end they tried to get it, but maybe uThermal can get it with a later on drop. The thing is though, this was a ridiculous amount of damage, and this was obviously all fantastic. Reynor had a lot of money in the bank, and if Reynor has time to spend that money, then he still has a chance, because he does have Vipers out now. And we know that Vipers are going to have the time of their life against an army that consists of tanks, Hellbats, and Medevacs. We have double parasitic bomb being dropped there. All these tanks are very exposed, and where it felt that uThermal had all the momentum on his side, Reynor has somehow kept it together, saved his hive on like 5 HP. He's going to lose a lot of drones here though against the Blue Flame Hellion 1 by. What a sick game here between these two. I absolutely love what uThermal is doing. I don't know if it's going to be good enough in the end, Nate, to get the W, but 10 out of 10.
Yeah, this isn't the first time that we've seen a Terran pull a build out of the Shadow Realm to try and take down Reynor, as you know, he has to be absolutely one of the most terrifying ZVT players to go up against in all of StarCraft. But the fact that uThermal has put us into this situation where it's like the creep's not that crazy. Reynor doesn't have some insane bank full of tech units. He's got a lot of roaches, a lot of ravagers, a lot of lings, and I
wish he would have killed the Hive. If he would have killed the Hive, that obviously means no Great Aspire for quite some time. Also, if the Vipers die, Reynor's not going to be able to rebuild them for a little while. There is already a Spire, and Reynor can obviously morph it into a Great Aspire whenever the hell he wants. And Hellbats and tanks are just going to have a very hard time closing this game out. This planetary fortress is going to fall. Reynor will pick up 17 SCVs too for his troubles, but he is going to be forced to evacuate the base on the top right, or maybe it's already a little bit too late for that, as uThermal finds 13 additional drones, and the Hellbats are going to do their best too. At the same time, we've got double tank harass at the triangle base of Reynor. Like, that's the normal thing. Second planetary does go down. Hey, this game is bananas.
It's ludicrous, Kev. And the most important thing, there were actually a lot of transfuses put on that Hive, by the way, so he anticipated uThermal coming back. But I think the biggest takeaway from this is, uThermal, you can definitely see where the strengths of doing it like this are. It can really catch a Zerg player off guard. You have a huge amount of firepower in what amounts to harass-sized forces. But the real issue, and the reason why uThermal I think is going to run out of steam pretty soon here, that's a huge pickup too. But the problem is that if you're moving all your tanks out and you're playing mech, there's nothing that you're going to have at home that will stop an army from killing your bases. Like, a planetary won't be able to hold, the whole Zerg force, and that's the problem. Is all of his defensive units are on the offense, and there's not a disengage with this. There's no going home. The siege tanks are locked in. They're planted into the ground. So yes, they'll fight, but once they die, you're just kind of left lingering feelings back home of, well, what do you actually have to defend a real attack? Just because you're playing mech doesn't mean you're bulletproof. The whole point is the tanks are at home. So maybe there's some iteration to be done on this, but I have highly enjoyed watching this style get broken out in this game.
This Orbital's in a bit of danger, man. This is so many Ravagers. If Reynor wants, I actually think he could potentially get the kill. No, not quite, but it's somewhat close. It is on fire. There's a double Tor drop heading towards the main base of Reynor. Now, Reynor has seen it, and that obviously means that these Thors could potentially be in a bit of trouble because the Vipers are trying to chase it down too. Reynor has, at the moment, 24 Ravagers on the map. As uThermal is switching into Cyclones, though, so if we can get like 9 or 10 Cyclones out, they already have mech field accelerated. That could be kind of cool, but unfortunately for uThermal, he does end up losing another planetary fortress.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue, again, is when you're doing these types of things, you can kind of hold on if you leave like 2, maybe 3 tanks. If you go like 4 or 5, then you can definitely kind of keep the Ravagers away. But the biggest question is just getting up close and personal with them. I actually really like bringing the Thors over here because they do 2-shot the Ravagers. So you can see if he actually fights, then head-to-head, yes, he can absolutely do great damage against this. But that has not really been the case so far. And it's still kind of crazy because Reynor has, he's still scrambling to retake a lot of his former bases, but uThermal just doesn't have the steam left in the tank to keep moving forward and take those bases. His economy is just, it's gone.
Yeah, I'm afraid it's pretty much the beginning of the end. uThermal has one more army. This is the army that needs to pretty much win the game, as he has lost a few too many planetaries and command centers. I feel like uThermal deserved more. This was an amazing strategy with really good execution for quite some time, and he got so close to getting Reynor out of there. Unfortunately, seemed like it wasn't quite enough. GG, Reynor does take the 3-0 victory.